There have been many great heroes in history. Men who rose to the occasion when it mattered most, fought bravely, and achieved great things for their nation or people. But how do you define greatness? What makes one hero greater than another? Sometimes it might be a combination of bravery, cunning, determination, or even luck that elevates one man above his peers. For centuries, Christian pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem for religious purposes had to pass through hostile territories controlled by Muslim powers. Born around 1060, little is known about Godfrey's early life, though he probably spent his youth hunting, fighting, but after weeks of fighting, they failed to capture the city and were forced to withdraw. With tensions rising and tempers flaring among the troops, they elected Godfrey leader, hoping he could restore order. Under his guidance, the group made better time on the road and managed to avoid major conflicts. The Catholic Church is in the process of formally canonizing him as a saint, citing miracles attributed to his intercession. Though it seems likely that Godfrey didn't perform any miracles himself, there's no shortage of legends claiming he spared the lives of Muslims and Jews, protected Christians fleeing persecution, and cured the sick. Click here to watch this video we did on Richard the Lionheart, another medieval military genius, or click here to watch this video. But as always, thank you for watching. Whether or not these stories are true, they paint a sympathetic picture of the man and might help explain why he is still revered in modern times. When they arrived at the gates of Jerusalem in 1099, their numbers had swelled to an estimated 12,000 men. He's often depicted wearing armor and bearing a sword or shield. Some versions of his story claim that Godfrey was killed in battle, but most historians agree that he died peacefully in his bed. Still, others say he disappeared from the pages of history after founding the Templars, only to reappear 200 years later as a mysterious knight named. Some believe Tancred was Godfrey's reincarnation and that he returned to lead the Third Crusade alongside Richard the Lionheart and King Philip II of France. Like so many aspects of Godfrey's life, there's no way to tell where fact ends and fiction begins. But one thing is certain, Godfrey of Bouillon lived a fascinating life that would influence the course of European and Middle Eastern history forever. Now ready to lay siege, Godfrey divided his forces into two groups. While one force bombarded the city walls, the other looted and pillaged nearby villages. Despite fierce resistance from the Muslim defenders, the Crusaders captured Jerusalem on July 5th. Crusaders suffered from exhaustion, disease, and wounds sustained in battle. But Godfrey made sure the surviving soldiers were given time to recover before dividing the spoils of war. He also ordered that the city's Jewish inhabitants be massacred, which may seem at odds with Jesus' teachings, but was actually fairly common during the medieval period. Most accounts claim that Godfrey tried to spare the lives of Muslims and Jews willing to convert to Christianity or pay a protection tax. But this policy didn't extend to those who chose to resist the Crusader occupation and learning the arts of war like most young nobles of the time. He took the title of Advocate of the Holy Sepulchre and became one of the wealthiest men in Europe. But his time in the spotlight was short-lived. Just 2 years later, in 1100, he died of natural causes and was succeeded by his brother Baldwin. He was certainly well educated, but his literacy seems to have been limited to reading and writing in Latin. He played a key role in establishing a beachhead for Christianity in the Holy Land, opening the door for centuries of crusades to come. But perhaps his greatest contribution to history can be found in something he left behind. Shortly before his death, Godfrey founded the military order known as the Knights Templar, a holy order of warriors dedicated to protecting pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. The Templars would go on to play a critical role in defending Europe against invading armies. They grew to become one of the most powerful fighting forces in medieval Europe. And they even played a part in a recapture of Jerusalem from Muslim forces in 1187. While records show he owned several castles in his homeland, he wasn't a king or emperor. In fact, he wasn't even a particularly wealthy noble. So why did he join the crusade? Perhaps he was moved by Pope Urban's call to arms. Maybe he simply enjoyed the prospect of looting and pillaging in the Holy Land. Or perhaps he saw the opportunity to make a name for himself. Whatever the reason, he would soon become famous throughout Europe and beyond. But in the 1090s, Pope Urban II called for the establishment of a Christian state in the region to protect these travelers on their way to the Holy City. This call to arms ignited the First Crusade, and before long, thousands of European knights headed east to seize Jerusalem from its Muslim rulers. And in 1099, a knight named Godfrey of Bouillon proved he had what it takes to be the greatest of them all. His story began more than 3 decades earlier in 1066 when William the Conqueror, Duke of Normandy, invaded England and defeated King Harold Godwinson at the Battle of Hastings. This victory marked the beginning of the Norman conquest of England. The English monarchy was replaced with William's own royal dynasty. Language, customs, culture, and even names changed across the land. Over time, the Anglo-Saxons became known as the English, and the Old English language evolved into Norman French. But while William and his Norman followers were busy securing their new kingdom, other European leaders set their sights on a different prize: the Holy Land. Among them were several members of the German and French nobility, including Godfrey of Bouillon. After enduring months of hardship, hunger, and thirst, the Crusaders finally laid siege to Antioch in June 1098. Once Jerusalem was secure, Godfrey of Bouillon was crowned the first ruler of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. And yet, despite his relatively short stay in power, Godfrey's influence on medieval history was immeasurable. While he's best remembered as a ruthless warrior, some sources suggest Godfrey was actually more complex than that. In the centuries since his death, Godfrey has been portrayed in paintings, sculptures, and even movies. And now it's time for you to influence the course of this channel.